Alright, I wanted to share with you guys the books that I'm reading for research for my fantasy series that I'm writing right now. If you like Cruel Prince, if you like the court politics of Game of Thrones, but you want it to be more like written by women and less of women, that's me. My book personally, and a lot of fantasy, is inspired by historical events, current events, mythology. For the setting itself in my world, I am reading Versailles, a biography of the palace. Now, this does not necessarily delve into the French Revolution and Louis XIV through the 16th in depth, but it does talk about them, of course. This more focuses on the actual building of the palace, what it was like, how it was run, what was it made out of? How the hell did you feed an entire nation's upper class and have them live in one place at once? And how did that work out for them? We kind of know. But this leads to the factors leading up to it. The majority of the setting in my first book, the one that I'm writing right now, is in this resplendent, glittering, grandiose Fey palace from the perspective of a palace servant, as she sort of navigates between the different Fey houses and learns that she can actually directly influence the political alliances and the marriages and the laws of the kingdom by just whispering in the nobles' ears. In my world, it's a changing labyrinth with shifting hedges and gardens and a sentient forest, which I'm using the Light Eaters to help me write. I'm also pulling inspiration from This Immense World by Ed Yong. Highly, highly, highly recommend that book. I recommend it to everyone. It uses science, specifically talking about how we determine if a species is intelligent, what does intelligence actually mean, and are we intelligent enough to perceive the intelligence of other species and categorize them. This book is about how plants are connected, how plants can send vibrations, how plants can see us. They can see us. Also read Braiding Sweetgrass and Fresh Banana Leaves. If I'm going to write a sentient forest, I want it to be an extension of what our plants are already doing around us. In my world, magic is based off consent. A creature has to speak to the plant and ask the plant for permission to work with it, and nature has the right to refuse you. There are some creatures that do not need to ask for consent, and no one knows how that happened. I mean, except for me, but you know. It's like a big whole thing. The world at large is based on a debtor's economy. I was interested in talking about not just the financial burden, but the emotional burdens of being in debt and the moralizing that our society has done with debt. And to do that, I am reading Debt by David Graeber, which is about the first 5,000 years of our history of money, which I think is just such a freaking cool concept, because there's this misconception that our money has evolved out of the barter system, and the barter system is actually the exception to the rule. The barter system only occurred when resources, people, and land, I think, were very highly limited or restricted during wartime, during famine, etc., etc. But before that, it was like a creditor system. And how could something that popped up independently throughout all of different civilizations throughout the world being used as something to build people's lives and build their resources, how could that now be used as a tool of oppression? How has it been used as a tool of oppression for thousands of years? And in my world, your debt is marked in tattoos on your limbs. There's black bands of tattoos all over your limbs, and that informs others of your status and how they should treat you. The high fae, high nobles are completely unmarked. However, the trick is America Explained. I'm using America, the American kind of myth of meritocracy in my world as a huge part of the experience of my characters. The day of your birth, you are inked with 4 rings, 1 to each house, that you have to then pay off. Even if you start working when you're 5, the interest is already kicked in and you have 10 rings at that point. Now, you can pay off another's debt, but only once your debt itself is paid off. So, even the high fae, born inked with those 4 rings of debt, the next day their debt is paid off because their parents are unmarked, because their parents were unmarked, because their parents were unmarked. But if you are not lucky enough to be in the upper class and to experience generational wealth, well, you're experiencing generational poverty. My protagonist, she is determined to pay off her debt so that she can then pay off the debt of her found family. For inspiration, I don't have them with me right now, but I'm also using Who Cooked the Last Supper, Women Who Ran with Wolves, When God Was a Woman, God Was a Black Woman, Gathering Moss. Basically anything that sort of weaves together sociology, our environment, history from the perspective of the oppressed. This is something that I'm really passionate about, writing about a system of oppression when you are, as a white woman, both part of the oppressor group and an oppressed identity. I want to write a diverse world. How I'm approaching it is, how do my characters, some who are privileged and oppressed and others who are just privileged, how do they perceive this world? How do they navigate this world? And do they choose to rise? And if they rise, who do they take with them?